CIO News. I am Khushbu Soni, your host for the broadcast and Chief Editor at CIO News. This is an exclusive interview series on the topic of Zero Trust Security Trend, an exclusive discussion with CIOs and CISOs powered by Zscaler. This is a recorded session and will be available on our website, that is cionews.co.in, and our CIO News LinkedIn handle. It is my pleasure to introduce our guest for today. He is Mr. Dinesh Ejanthkar, the Vice President Information Technology and the Chief Information Officer for the Enterprise Applications at Honeywell. Dinesh is an executive leadership professional with IT experience across diverse global industries such as manufacturing, retail, financial, banking sectors. He's been driving business transformation, innovation, growth, and operational efficiencies for various verticals. Dinesh has proven track record of starting competency centers from scratch to managing major multi-organizational transformations, along with managing IT as business unit and operations. Dinesh has worked in multi-country throughout his professional journey. He stayed in Thailand, Saudi Arabia, USA, and India, apart from leading the global IT team beyond. Dinesh, it's an absolute pleasure to have you today, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation to hear from you on your learnings.
Thank you, Khushbu, and glad to be here as well. I mean, this is a core topic at heart for everyone nowadays at CIOs, so glad to be here.
Wonderful. So, Dinesh, I wanted to begin with, in fact, putting across the first question to you to understand what does your typical day look like being, a CIO of Honeywell, and what are your typical day-to-day activities being at such a leadership role for such a large organization?
Yeah, I mean, there are multiple things. Being an enterprise application, definitely, there are multiple activities that go through, in providing the right applications to the businesses in a more innovative and the market oriented as well as secure manner. So when we look at our, this is almost like the start of the year. So when we look at the year, we go through a strap and then the AOP planning, the annual operating planning. And as part of that, through the year, what are the things that we are going to invest on? What are the things that we are going to, implement the projects? And also, what are the things that we are going to get more secure? More secure, because these things are happening on daily basis. So how do I secure that? So all these aspects come as a day-to-day almost in terms of projects, in terms of ad hoc activities as well.
Right. So, so Dinesh, what are the, like you mentioned in the last couple of years, digital has been the way forward, and all the organizations have accelerated their digital transformation journey and started doing business on digital platforms. So what are the security requirements to keep in place before organizations decide to move to digital platforms or even continue with their security transformation while conducting business with it digitally?
Sure. I think the first one that when we think about this always is how scalable and secure is the company that we are working with, in a new digital platform. It can be, on-prem, it can be SaaS, PaaS, whatever the model that we use, because we use all of them. So in that case, how scalable, how secure the company is, and how able are they to adhere to the compliance requirements that not just the industry, but we as Honeywell have, because we have pretty strict compliance requirements in terms of, say, PCIs, GDPRs, the SREMs that comes in. These are all country specific because we are global, so there might be region specific, country specific. So that's one. Making sure that there is encryption that goes in, in all these aspects, so that the data exposure when the transformation integration is happening, It's all encrypted. Making sure that the data is, data classification, data discovery is extremely important for us as Honeywell, because sometimes we work with, Department of Defense, sometimes we work with commercial companies, B2B. So we need to identify, and differentiate between what kind of data are we talking about over here. Uh, Identity access management, making sure that, whoever comes into the system is well secured through the proper process. Uh, and when it comes to on-prem, we are an old company, right? So we have bought a lot of assets, and we were not, and every company, we just bought the assets and they were connected to internet. And now when we are in the mode of discovering, we find almost every day in one site or the other new assets. So ensuring those assets, internal on-prem assets, are also more secure, because now they are getting into the digital world, they are getting connected to the outside world. So those are some of the basic security requirements we look at, when we are moving into a digital platforms, we are moving into business digitally.
Right. Wonderful. And also we've seen, huge adoption of moving to cloud, after the pandemic. So, what are your strategies to achieve and maintain compliance for any cloud environment?
Yeah, so I think from a cloud environment, again, as I said, making sure if you're moving to cloud, you have the right partner that you're working with, the right level of legal negotiations that have happened, because a lot of the times the data is residing with them. A lot of the times it's the operations that's reside with them. There are multiple things that you need to worry about. One is, if the cloud is vulnerable itself, then your operation is impacted. Then that's a different scenario that we need to look at. The data is sitting over there, and you are, even if your operations are working fine, is that data secured itself? Is it, what if it, you lose that data? That piece is another one. So the legal negotiation is extremely critical, working with our partner. Ability to address, because things happen, ability to address, modify the infra, modify the apps on a continuous basis, so that we are making it more secure from a, either it's for pandemic or either it's for maintaining compliance. I think that's the critical part when we are moving to cloud, when we think from that angle.
And also, we've lately observed that organizations' data flows across endpoint, cloud, web in real-time basis. So what is your data protection strategy for a complete visibility and control of organizations' data from device to cloud?
Yeah, so that's something that we started focusing, I would say, more and more in the last 1.5 years, where we have started building layers of security. When I think from the angle of, you have the device, where you have to protect it from the network. So that's the first level of security. How do I protect it from the network? Then the next level comes is the server and the workstations. How do I protect that? Second layer. Third layer comes, okay, how do I protect the users that are getting in? Identity protection. Then the applications that they get into. How do I protect the data inside that is sitting in? That's the last layer, the data. We look at, if we look at these 5 to 6 layers and break it, then we put a strategy around each of those layers. What do I need to protect them? So that, it can be an internal tools and technologies that we can implement. It can be an external factor that comes in, software that comes in and protects us. So it's all, we look at it from that multi-layer protection when it comes to securing the posture of basically building a layer of defense, as if you have to call it.
Got it. And what are the zero trust strategies, as per you, can be incorporated for secure network and application access?
Yeah, I mean, zero trust strategy is pretty critical for us as well. When we are putting the security policies, we are we assume that I mean, I won't say it that way, but we assume that everything is hostile. You start with that, and then how are you going to protect your environment? So basically, you start with the zero trust, and then you start building the layers on top of it. For example, it can be a least privileged access layer, right? So we provide access, starting with the privileged access like the administration and all that, to only a selected few, and there are exceptions that control it, including because earlier world used to be the server access are with not just IT but with business for whatever reason. They wanted to transfer a file, store a file, and earlier the access was not looked at that way. So okay, take this admin access and then you can store the file. Let's not dig into it. But now it's the least privileged access is the first step. What do you need, and you will get only that to execute your operation. Then comes the access reviews and all, which is like, every 3 months validate, working with the right stakeholders, either it's a manager or whoever is the key owner of that asset, whether this employee is still in that same role, whether this employee needs this access. So the zero trust comes internal as well, from a process perspective. And then building the outside protection as much as possible. SD-WANs, that software-defined WANs that we have, terminating unknown connections. Those are the software-defined tools that we try to bring in to protect our environment, our systems, and our data. So yeah, zero trust is. I know it starts with assuming that it is hostile, and then build the layers so that you protect yourself and your company.
Great. Great. My one last question, before we end today's session, any advices, best practices that you would want to recommend to the CIOs and CISOs as in the recent times, with all the challenges that we're going through? Any recommendations or suggestions that you would have?
Yeah, I mean, whatever I mentioned earlier, right? Those are good practices to implement, good things to do, but things happen. Things happen, and the question is, how prepared are you to solve that? How prepared are you to drive a fire drill when things happen? How prepared are you to, in a structured form, making sure that your business is not impacted? Because the key part is things happen. It may happen like it brings you down. It may happen that it's hitting you, and you know that you can still get protected. So I mean, there are basic tactical things, patching, the building the layers of protection, the way you operate the fire drill, proactively and reactively as well. Every company has gone through this impact of outside world, where they either have to proactively through the protection and patching and everything are staying away, but also in some cases the system went down, and then you take it out of the firewall, and then you have the fire drill going on, but making sure that the customers are the ones who are least impacted. I think preparing for that is extremely critical. You can do all that, but preparing for that ad hoc is extremely critical.
Very true, Dinesh. Awesome. It's been a great conversation, Dinesh, and I'd like to thank you once again for taking out time for us on this platform and sharing your experiences with us and your perspectives for the way forward. So thank you so much, and we hope to have you back soon on this platform for further discussions on various topics.
It was my pleasure. I mean, I'm glad to be here sharing this. Definitely, hopefully it is useful, and I keep listening to other podcasts that you guys have, and definitely a good job being done for those CIOs. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It means a lot. Thank you.